Denzel Washington entered the View studio with his usual calm authority, dressed in a charcoal suit and a look that mixed wisdom with quiet confidence. The audience gave a thunderous standing ovation as he took his seat.
Holiday.
The show's panel Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Hostin, Joy Behar, Sarah N., and Anna Navarro welcomed him with warmth and reverence. The conversation began with his new film, his legacy in cinema, and his recent philanthropic work. Denzel answered thoughtfully, keeping the tone respectful and grounded. But tension began to build when the subject pivoted to celebrity responsibility and recent comments Denzel made about Hollywood's shifting values. Sunny asked whether he believed the industry had lost its moral compass. Denzel paused, choosing his words. "I think we've confused attention with excellence," he said. The room went quiet. The co-hosts shifted in their chairs, sensing the mood change. And the tone of the interview shifted with it. Joy Behar followed up, asking whether Denzel's views were out of step with younger generations. "You talk about discipline and character," she said. "But don't you think the world today needs more openness and flexibility?" Denzel smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Openness without values is chaos," he said. "You can't just abandon foundation for fashion." Whoopi chimed in with an attempt to diffuse the tone. "But isn't change part of growth?" Denzel nodded. "Yes, but growth without direction is just drifting. And I didn't come up in this business to drift." The audience clapped lightly. Anna Navarro then challenged him. "But don't you think statements like that sound judgmental? Like you're blaming the next generation instead of empowering them." Denzel looked directly at her. "It's not judgment. It's standards. And if you don't set them, someone else will." The studio tensed. The conversation was getting real. Sarah tried to redirect to Denzel's mentorship of young actors, but Anna pressed on. "You said recently that people want applause without substance. Can you explain who you meant?" Denzel's jaw tightened. "Anyone chasing fame instead of truth? That applies to actors, influencers, politicians, any shows like this?" The crowd gasped. The host stiffened. Sunny replied, "Are you suggesting The View lacks substance?" Denzel held her gaze. "I'm saying when you focus more on headlines than healing, you lose your purpose." Joy snapped. "This show uplifts voices of color and women." Denzel responded firmly, "And that matters. But uplift should not come at the expense of depth." Whoopi stepped in again, this time more assertive. "Denzel, with all due respect, this show's been around a long time. We talk hard truths," Denzel replied. "Hard truth doesn't mean loud conflict." His voice was even, but unshakably powerful. The conversation reached a breaking point when Sunny brought up Denzel's past remarks about media manipulation. He once said the press doesn't want truth, they want to be first. Are you implying shows like this are part of the problem? Denzel took a deep breath. "I'm saying when media values provocation over clarity, it becomes part of the noise, and people are drowning in noise." Sarah interjected, "But isn't this a platform to cut through that?" Denzel responded, "Only if you're willing to listen, not just react." Anna rolled her eyes. "Sounds like you came here expecting praise, not questions." Denzel stood up slowly. "I came here expecting dialogue. What I got was loaded opinions dressed as inquiries." The studio went silent. The audience held its breath. Denzel didn't shout, didn't raise his voice. He just stared, disappointed. Then took off his mic and turned toward the exit. Producers rushed behind the scenes. Whoopi stood and called out, "Denzel, let's finish this with respect," but he didn't stop. Paused only once at the edge of the set. "Respect begins with intent," he said. "Not platform. Intent." Then he walked off stage. The crowd sat frozen, unsure whether to clap or remain silent. The camera cut awkwardly to Joy, who tried to salvage the moment. "Well, that was spirited." Whoopi sat back down slowly, visibly stunned. The show cut to commercial with no music, no applause, just an abrupt fade to black. Backstage, Denzel exited the studio swiftly, declining interviews or further explanation. But the moment was already viral. Audience members posted shaky clips of his departure. News outlets picked it up instantly. Within hours, the headlines exploded. Denzel storms out. Actor calls out daytime drama. Hollywood icon shuts down the view. Social media fractured into opinion camps. Some applauded Denzel's refusal to play along with what they called media provocation. Others criticized him for being inflexible, labeling his walkout an ego move. Analysts on morning shows picked the footage apart frame by frame. Every gesture, glance, and line was dissected like a courtroom case. Memes flooded Twitter, some showing Denzel walking off with captions like "When wisdom enters the chat," others mocking him with gifs from his films. The View trended for the first time in months. Think pieces emerged. Was this about generational miscommunication? Masculine pride? Media responsibility? One columnist called it the moment when elegance refused to be framed. Another said, it revealed how daytime talk too often masks conflict as curiosity. Either way, the altercation had sparked a cultural wildfire the next day on The View. Whoopi addressed the situation head-on. "We had a tough moment yesterday. We don't script discomfort. Sometimes it finds us anyway." She emphasized the show's mission to engage honestly, but acknowledged the tension. Sunny stood by her questions, calling them fair and rooted. In accountability, Anna was more defiant, saying guests should expect scrutiny. Joy cracked a joke to lighten the mood, but the studio vibe remained heavy. Denzel released no formal statement. Instead, his social media quietly posted a quote, "Truth doesn't need applause, it needs presence." Support poured in from other actors, directors, and even young fans who appreciated his calm integrity. He didn't campaign for sympathy. He simply disappeared into his usual rhythm film sets, speeches. Community work while the world debated the silence he left behind. Within days, entertainment media labeled the moment a watershed cultural clash. Professors used it in lectures about narrative control and media ethics. Activists cited it in conversations about respect and black masculinity. Late-night hosts parodied it, with comedians imitating Denzel's calm exit to exaggerated laughter.
Dated laughter.
But even through the jokes, the impact was clear. Cracked through the screen, Denzel Washington didn't just challenge the panel, he challenged the framework of what makes a conversation real. Whether you agreed with him or not, you felt the shift. Fans began revisiting his past speeches, sharing clips where he warned about misinformation and the performative nature of fame. The storm he left behind wasn't just emotional, was intellectual. For a moment, everyone was listening. Talk of a return visit buzzed around entertainment gossip, but Denzel made it clear through close friends that he was uninterested in continuing a conversation that doesn't listen to listen, only to reply. Still, the show's producers expressed willingness to welcome him back anytime. Behind the scenes, guest prep protocols were reportedly revised. Meanwhile, Denzel continued appearing at film festivals, quietly turning attention back to his craft. Yet every time he stepped on stage or in front of a camera, someone inevitably asked, "What happened on The View?" And with a knowing glance or a light shrug, Denzel always deflected with grace. He never attacked, never explained, because for him, the statement had already been made, not with yelling or argument, but with dignity. And so the moment lived on, not just as an episode of The View, but as a turning point in how we think about confrontation, communication, and the expectations we place on public figures. Denzel Washington didn't explode. He didn't rant. He stood his ground, delivered his truth, and walked out when it was clear he was being heard, but not understood. That simple act resonated louder than any headline. It reminded people that presence without peace is not worth the stage. And when Denzel left, he didn't just exit a talk show. He exited a trap. He chose purpose over popularity, clarity over conflict. And whether one admired it or dismissed it, no one could deny it. Denzel's silence spoke volumes.